RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
Hi, I'm Maria Theoharis or Vela Sews on social media. Welcome back to Sew Organised Style podcast. Thanks for listening and don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and write a review. You can find Sew Organised Style podcast but with an S, not a Z, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I communicated at the start I wanted a pretty practical, academic, hands-on book. Not something on theory, but as practical as possible. And it's because I really have a practice as, interdisciplinary as it is, that it's something that you still do and make.
That's Grace Jun. We're going to find out how Grace does so much for the community through her research and energy. On another topic, if you live in Australia and decide to purchase your own Mimiqueen custom dress form, I'll be your body scanner. Go to mimiqueens.com to book your Australian scanning session. Now, let's grab a cuppa to hear from Grace Jun. Grace, thank you for coming on to Sew Organised Style podcast today for Sober 50. I'm really pleased that we could find this time so that we could talk about what you've been doing and also what you've got for us in your book, which is all about fashion, disability and co-design.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much for having me again. And also with our time difference and making that effort to really reach out and even take a look at my book means a lot to me.
Oh, thank you. Time-wise, if I can at least find the person and get them on the podcast when we're both awake, that's the easy part. So what I wanted to let people know about is, your book is called Fashion, Disability and Co-Design. Your career didn't start in that area, did it?
I'd always had a love for the arts and design. I think if I had to take it really back, my father has an engineering background. My mother has a architect and finance background. I think that had given me some influence to choose, I think, design that was a bit practical, in my opinion. And I started with graphics because I just actually loved more of the history of graphic design than actually making graphic design. I had appreciation for visual and aesthetic meanings like symbolism, and that got me interested in many things. And doing graphic design, we also do packaging, typography, many types of forms that I think are very transferable to fashion, which was easy for me to then kind of pick up some of the techniques, such as pattern making. And I was like, okay, this is a box for the body. And I got to think about it in a different way. But I've always had a love for fabrics and especially textiles, even before I could put my words or vocabulary or knew anything about it when I was very young. I remember I would spend hours in the store with my mom, not really buying anything, but touching everything because I was just very curious about why does this look like this and it feels like this, and just the materiality of, I think, textiles and their place in fashion has always fascinated me.
And then you made the step or the leap into fashion?
Yeah, I think it was pretty crucial. During my time at Samsung, when I worked in more of the mobile electronics division, they were pioneering a lot of design strategy and innovation around wearability. Naturally, technology started to embrace a lot of fashion collaboration. And I got to interview people from the watch industry as well as apparel industry as designers, and started to learn a little bit more of the language for fashion there instead of just my own, gut interests and my own biases and designers that I just personally love and houses I love. Like I said, I always liked books, and the history of, I think, design always fascinated me. So it kind of was a nice bridge. I learned more technically, more at Parsons when I was there for my master's. And not just technically, but construction-wise, I learned in the fashion garment district in New York. I basically was free labor for a factory that I just wanted to learn from for about a year.
Mm.
And I learned sewing pretty quickly from all the other ladies who were there telling me I was doing something wrong every other minute. So I wouldn't say I have the breadth and knowledge of all of construction because it's such a craft, appreciated art form, and just never ending for to learn.
Mm.
But I did get a lot of my foundations through actual just making. And then some of the pattern making classes I took extra at my graduate program. And most importantly, you just apply them. And so when I started to be interested in projects, I made my own things and made a lot of mistakes along the way.
From a sewing point of view, that's what the unpick is for, to
Yeah.
unpick the projects that, yeah, that have gone wrong. And it was nice that, you've taken the time to work in fashion and you had people there who were supportive enough to tell you, okay, you might do something wrong every day, but you're actually learning every day.
Yes, they were very patient with me, and I was very lucky, I think. For them, it was a serious 9 to 6, 9 to 9 job. You crunch in, there's a runway in a season, and many of the garment workers, they've been working in the industry for a very long time, and
Mm,
some of them started off as many as immigrants, and many of them are women,
mm,
especially for embroidery. So to me, they were the master craftsmanship people and craftsmen women. And it was my honor to make my mistakes in front of them. Although, I was teaching and I was also like a professor, right? So I think it was really interesting of a dynamic, but I certainly loved that they had a sense of humor too. Like they're like,
yeah.
this is chiffon and silk. You don't do that, with chiffon and silk. I was like, okay. So we would start all over again. And of course, oh boy, if I think one of the women kindly was like, if you're gonna make another mistake, you should use the muslin first, and things like that. Um,
Okay.
but I really enjoyed, I think, a little bit of that tit for tat, but also like me to respect that their work is their work and
Mm.
it's like a daily grind. And it's also a level of mastery that I just came in out of the blue. The most I did was like maybe hem a few pants before then myself, but that's nothing compared to the work that they do.
From what you just described, you were studying as well as working as an intern at the same time.
Yes. So I was doing a lot of things. I was very ambitious, which I
Yeah.
don't recommend for anybody in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
And then, being part of a company in Boston at that time, I think I was just really excited to start my own journey
Mm.
after leaving corporate. And I was still in my 20s, which was more than a decade ago. So I had the energy to, to do things. I did a lot of things during that time. I just
And
didn't like sleep. I just
I
kept
was
trying to meet people and trying things.
I was going to say that at that time of your life, sleep is not a priority.
Which is very different from now for me. Being a new mom, it's like everything. But at that time, it was just a different energy, and
Mm,
I was reminded again most recently how humbling it is to be able to make,
mm,
and that actually means a lot to me to be able to create something, whether it's something small, like you looked up on YouTube and you crocheted something, or you learned something new that you think it seemed very basic to do.
mm.
But the act of making, I realized is really important to me. And so, like, doing that, I think is something I'd love to continue.
Oh, and congratulations on becoming a new mum as well.
Thank you. It's another journey and another book for another time.
Oh, I hope so. All right. Now that you've mentioned the book, so the book is called Fashion, Disability and Co-Design, and one of the key parts in that book is the Open Style Lab, the OSL. So can we step back to find out from you how you came to start writing the book?
Yes, so I was really fortunate to be with friends who was starting a project at that time called Open Style Lab, and wasn't a nonprofit yet. And when I joined, I got to just see a really amazing level of collaboration. And throughout my tenure there, working as first a research assistant at MIT for the lab, which it started off as, and then executive director because I was like, oh wow, now it's a company. I have no idea how to run a company,
Mm.
and and go fundraise and all these other things that has nothing to do with fashion or design. But in the business aspect, I think there are some relatable and interchangeable lessons I've seen in both industries, and I learned from that experience doing Open Style Lab became a very collaborative and educational platform for me to grow within and as well as to expand it to other places. For people who I guess haven't read the book, it is a nonprofit organization and
Yep.
it's maybe 12, it's 12th year now. Yes. It's expanded to the UK and is also mostly based in New York now, doing educational programs that invite people with disabilities, designers, engineers, and therapists. And that iconic program of collaboration was recognized by the National Design Awards, which I'm very proud to say, because to me, that was a moment of not just because you got an award, but you are
Yep.
seen for the intersectional collaboration you're trying to bring in different sectors instead of being very close to your own craft. But I could see that people were starting to want to learn more than one thing. And that was very apparent in my students, and that was very apparent in why I chose the graduate program I did when I was younger.
Yep.
So that I think that desire to be multi-skilled learning, but still have a real world impact was something I saw in that time and generation and felt was really important. I also met some of my most lifelong friends throughout that journey. So, yes, most of the book is from that. It took me about almost 8, 7 years to write this book because I had to look up all my notes, get all my image credits. Like, it's a
Yes.
tedious job. It's as many authors would know, and especially if it's something you did not do by yourself, but it was all collaboration. I think there's a beauty to it, but there's an extreme complexity, and I think a respect that I have to give for many of the people who are featured there that gave me the chance to, tell their story.
Mm.
So I'm just really happy that it's out there because there's still many people who ask similar ideas or thoughts that I know I've seen before.
Yep.
And I can't just give them a piece of my mind or photos anymore, or whatever part of my brain that's still working with not much sleep from being a mom. So
Yep.
it's really helpful to have a book with many pictures.
That's good. You've got the basics there with with the history of how design for people who need special clothes for their abilities, or I don't know, how would you put it? Is there a term that you use?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I think I jump between the terms, but
Yep.
rather than saying which is right, I've heard, the same goes with identification if you
Yep.
are a disabled person or if you're a person with a disability. And sometimes people don't even say they're special clothing, but they're just maybe modified,
Yep.
altered, also pre-existing, which I put into my book, like Hermes, some of the high fashion houses like Issey Miyake as well. They've had all of these clothes that are applicable for people with disabilities and for those who are aging. It just never was labeled that way. So I think that's kind of the tricky line that I had to kind of look into why I opened up the his story because I think there were many scholars and many designers before me who already had that debate. And it
Yeah.
was my job to kind of start to pick which ones I wanted to highlight to build upon the argument that I wanted to portray in the book. And so there's a really interesting collection. And mostly, I think that part I only focused on US history, but there's so many other countries I think that have a rich history around designing with and for disability.
And while you say that, you're focused on examples that you've come across in history from the States, in the research or in the companies that people can go to, you've actually got quite a huge amount of companies that people can go to that are not based in America as well. So I was quite chuffed that you found four in Australia because I didn't know that they existed for people who are looking for clothes for their bodies.
I think the back index, which you're talking about,
Yeah.
was Definitely supported by the team at Open Style Lab and Yasmin especially, who helped me compile that massive list of resources.
Mm,
Because every week we get emails on, do you know how to make these pants or these things? And I'm like, well, we kind of do, but we also know there's another company that's a
mm,
smaller company that's been doing it. So I think maybe you should reach out to them first because sometimes it's a very specific apparel and there's already another company doing it. And today it's so globalized in a way that we connect with each other, like you and I right now from
yeah.
Australia to here in the States. It's pretty remarkable, I think, when you could see what the resources are. And I just kind of wanted to put that in the back to be able to give a little more tangibility to people, even if the business is closed, that yes, those things can exist and they did and they are.
Mm. I mean, it's great that Bloomsbury Publishing got you to pull it all together because it is a great resource for jeans that people can wear. I think it was Levi's. They had some side opening
Yeah.
jeans. I'd never seen
Yes.
that
I mean, all
before.
credit to Helen Cookman and Levi's.
Yeah.
I got a lot of that great information first from the US Patent Department and then other
Yep.
resources like NYU Langone. But I was really lucky, I think, with my publisher at Bloomsbury, who I communicated at the start. I wanted a pretty practical, academic, hands-on book, not something on theory, but as practical as possible. And
Mm.
it's because I really have a practice as, interdisciplinary as it is, that it's something that you still do and make, and something I really valued. So I know every time I read like a practical book or like a techniques application, I kind of be like, well, that was 10 years ago. Now it's kind of outdated. And I have a feeling I might be that kind of book now, but I still wanted to give something a little bit more digestible to
Hmm.
readers because I knew this was something that people still asked about, especially students.
One of the chapters or one of the examples was about being able to dress independently. And earlier you mentioned that it might be how a person's body is or aging because, from an aging perspective, the ability to reach or pick things up can start to fail. So I thought that was a really good example in there,
I
example to
think I
have
was
there.
trying to pick topics to show the breadth of the human bodily experience and
Mm,
that we're constantly changing.
mm,
I think many times, even with clothes, we may think they're static if they're hanging on a rack, but they move. And so does the body. And sometimes the body doesn't move in certain ways, at certain
RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
times. Same thing when I was pregnant. I did not move. I think I slowed down. I added 30 minutes to my walk from my parking lot to get to my office when I was 9 months, very heavy.
yeah.
And that definitely slowed me down. I definitely knew I couldn't reach over for certain things. And it's interesting how the body, I think, has constraints and has flexibilities and adaptations. And of course, the things that we wear sometimes doesn't accommodate to the entirety range and the diversity of everyone's own, bodily changes. But
Mm.
that was, I think, a very early, simplified, I think, conversation piece I wanted to put in there because it is something I've seen from many scholars talking about independent living, especially architects here in the US. So again, from a US perspective, I think I put that headline there to start with.
From a sewing perspective, where do you put zippers? Do you use
Mm.
buttons? Do you use the magnetic um, buttons instead?
Closures.
Closures, yeah. So it's all of that sort of
Yes.
thing.
It's interesting because you have a community already of so many interested sewers
Mm,
and people who want to sew not just for themselves, but for others. And I think throughout my decade of working with the organization and doing this book, have really found it interesting to see different models and interests of people who volunteer. And that's why I think we've had such a large age range of people who've been in the program and sometimes very senior to me and um, some over experienced and overqualified, but they have the same passion of like wanting to put their skills to something. It's not like we're asking for rocket science. We're really looking to see like how can people apply their skills for the body that's continually changing. And I think that's kind of the goal that I've always looked for when I looked for people to resonate with was, oh, you have this skill, you have this community. Guess what? There's thousands and millions of people who are aging every day, disabled either through different various circumstances,
Yep.
birth, injury, or pregnancy or whatever. And there's such a great need for you. And I hope that book showed that like this is a need for people to be able to still contribute and be of value to.
I mean, it's a great resource because of all of the examples that you've got in there. And online, what we have been doing for people who want to support how a garment looks, there is a hashtag called sewn, shown, seated. So I can make a garment and I need to sit on a chair in a certain way so that people can see how it fits. So that people who are sewing for someone who is seated can see how, whether that garment works well for someone who has to be seated for most of their life.
Yes, and I love how you say seated, right? Because I mean, we're seated for many times in our job, and it's not
Yep.
just wheelchair users or the elderly. I think it's a really interesting way to call out for a specific body position through sewing.
And then I've come across a dress form company in the UK. They're called Mimiquins, and in their first year of operation, they did a seated dress form for Yvonne, who's the wheelie stitcher. So they had only just started, and she sews for herself, and they worked it out. So I thought that was a really good collaboration as well.
Yes. I mean, I think the more we have collaborations,
Mm,
whether they're, featured at the Met, or at museums, or even with local industries and companies like
yep,
the mannequin manufacturers,
yep,
it's like they may seem like I think what is called like, one-offs, which is something I've been asked many times, is this super customized for that one person or that super special collaboration? I'm like, well, then where would the ideas grow from? Like, they
mm,
don't just grow out of nowhere. Someone needs to begin that and continue that conversation, or, reference a previous designer and continue their work in
yep.
this decade. So it's really interesting. I think every time we see collaborations like that, you get to see the more whole picture of fashion as a landscape as well. I think mostly, yeah, there's case studies, which are more example stories, and a few techniques in there. There was the accidental kind of, like I mentioned, haute couture and high fashion that are also accessible, which I love. And I was really interested in researching a lot of into that area
Mm,
to kind of talk about garments that were just like, even for Hermes, like they have a history of being a house around equestrian also values and different types of materials for leather for their brand. And it's so transferable for movement in many ways. And
mm.
so it's just interesting, I think, to dive into that. But I do have, I think, some of those examples in the beginning. And then the rest are really heavily on stories.
I was trying to explain to someone on the weekend. I was with a lot of people who sew, and I was saying, "Oh, Grace is coming on the podcast today, and she's done this book." And they were asking just for a quick summary, and I said, "Well, it's to be able to work with someone who needs clothes that suit them, and whether it's a physical or a internal need, so tactile, having fabrics that feel good, that sort of thing." So I think that kind of made a little bit more sense to them, but I think I've oversimplified what's in the book.
No, I think simplification's great. I even sometimes have a hard time translating the work I do. I
Mm.
just know I have a process to this madness that now is replicated and evolved upon and explored through many, many people who've been part of my life and this work. So I think at most at the heart, it's about collaboration and actually applying it to people's real life to me.
Yep.
Um, and keeping in mind that, said this in many talks, but that clothing is, and especially as we think about fashion as a cultural kind of aspect, is part of your daily life. Like the way you clothe yourself is a daily right. And when you denied that, you're also denied access to many things, whether it could be a uniform for a job or an unspoken dress code for a funeral. So I
Mm.
think when people see that as a different spectrum, you start to think about, oh, then why aren't there new innovations, ADA compliances for clothing to be more accessible? And I think contributing to many advocates and leaders and designers and artists with disabilities, they are taking up that space to be able to show what that would look like. I'm just thrilled to be able to kind of hover around to collect all the other people who want to advocate or
Mm.
support and contribute their skills to. So I don't know if it's always designing for, because sometimes in the program we've had people who are all disabled and in their own, whether they have a voice disability like
Yep.
myself or they have physical or mental disability. And I think just kind of it's almost part therapy when you first get there because everyone's kind of divulging their experiences.
Yeah.
But to do so shows the vulnerability of how you get dressed. So I think to me that's a convoluted way of saying it's about collaboration for real needs, real lived experience needs.
So it's more collaborating together rather than for, because then you're putting your thoughts onto that person and they don't have a say, whereas you're collaborating with, you're working together as a team and coming up
Yeah.
with possibilities.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, there was only one question because I go to the acknowledgements in books all the time to see the personal story. And
Oh, that's
sorry,
I laugh because I think that's usually where people don't, see.
oh,
They
really?
usually don't read. So, yeah, I was told by many friends and colleagues, they're like, this is one's for you. No one's really going to read this part.
So my question is, how did Pamela Horn help you organize your thoughts? Because she was mentioned in the acknowledgements.
Pamela Horn, I met her at the Cooper Hewitt, and I had just a wild discussion with her. I probably ate up about 2 hours of her time that day,
Yep.
probably longer. And it was just a lot of notes that I've been hoarding and mental notes that I've been hoarding from doing my work at Open Style Lab, teaching at Parsons, and just being a designer myself, and
Hmm.
trying to organize that in buckets, categories, and sections. I think she
Yep.
was incredibly insightful because she's worked with authors, bookmakers, and curators before. And I think her experience with working, especially in the curatorial area, really just kind of helped me just organize, like, and dump all my thoughts on paper for the first time.
Hmm.
So it was quite lovely.
I read acknowledgements because I need to find out the story behind the person, and that's usually where they write it. It sort of connects the person to the listener.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I might be the only person who reads acknowledgements, but that's just me.
No, it's really nice that you brought it out because I kind of wanted to show that. I mean, yeah, I wrote it, but it took me a long time and a lot of people helped me get there. And whether that was that random 2+ hours coffee, right, of debriefing to
Mm.
someone that just took me to an exhibition randomly that opened my eyes to rethink about what I was writing, like
Yep.
just random things. And people I've met along the way have really shaped everything that I've done.
Mm.
There's no like I did it all by myself in a black
No,
hole.
no, no, no. I mean, you're the author. However, it took a whole community to get the book to where it is now so that we can use it.
Yeah. And I just was thrilled to try to pack it into 2 pages in the Bloomsbury book.
Now that the book is out there and you're at a stage where you've got a young family as well as your career, what can we expect next from Grace?
I think the best answer I could give is that I am still in the process. And I thought I had always everything figured out, but especially having a family makes you kind of reevaluate a lot of things
Mm,
and look at things in a different way, maybe underneath, look at new archives, old things. So I'm really happy to say I'm in the process of like finding what that next thing is about.
wonderful. Grace, thanks for coming on to the podcast today. So honored that we could meet, and I'm really pleased that the book is out there for people to use as a resource when they're working with someone that they're trying to help create clothing that allows them to be the person that they want to be.
Thank you so much again.
You're welcome. Cheers. This episode of Sew Organised Style podcast for Sew Over 50 was both video and audio produced by me, Maria Thea Harris, in my sewing room with permission of Grace Jun. Sound by Knife on YouTube. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and write a review. You can find Sew Organised Style podcast with an S, not a Z, on all good podcast apps. On Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Many thanks for the ongoing support of the podcast Patreon contributors. Their paid Patreon membership enables me to create these video and audio podcasts for you for free. And yes, if you live in Australia and decide to purchase your own Mimiquin custom dress form, I'll be your body scanner for Mimiquin UK. Make sure you go back and listen to our free Sew Over 50 podcast episodes on Sew Organised Style podcasts, and use the @share Sew Over 50 tag on your posts on Instagram to see your sewing friends in chronological order. I look forward to joining you in your sewing room next time. Stay safe, everyone.
RingCentral's AI receptionist uses voice AI to answer on the first ring, so you'll never miss a call again. In just a few minutes, you can personalize your own AI receptionist to answer questions, route calls, schedule appointments, and even send texts in multiple languages. Plus, it's easy to scale. Create unlimited AI receptionists across any phone system. It's all powered by one reliable platform for effortless AI communications. See for yourself at ringcentral.com. RingCentral, voice of your business.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.